Hello and welcome to lesson 6 in our basic algorithm scripting section in freeCodeCamp. This lesson is titled Return Largest Numbers in Arrays. And it tells us return an array consisting of the largest number from each provided subarray. For simplicity, the provided array will contain exactly 4 subarrays. Remember, you can iterate through an array with a simple for loop and access each member with array syntax RI. So they didn't really give us, they say the comparison operators, we kind of can just continue. The first thing I want to do is, they say my answer is going to return an array. So I'll create a variable called answer, and we'll create that empty array. So now that's initialized. Under there, we can create a for loop that's going to go through our array. So we could say for var I equals 0, I less than array dot length increment I. So this for loop is in charge of going through our list, which is 4 arrays are inside of this array. There's this array, which is 4, 5, 1, 3. Then there's this array, 13, 27, and this one. And then there's the first, second, third, and then fourth array. So it starts at 0. As long as 0 is less than the length of our array, which is 4, keep going. So then under it, we would write, the code we want this to do in here, which once we're inside the loop, we want to create a variable which holds biggest number. We'll initialize this to 0. Under it, we're going to make another for loop. This for loop is going to be in charge of actually going through each individual array. So it actually looks at all the numbers that are in there. Inside of that for loop, we'll compare the numbers we're going through. So for, we'll say var SI subindex. We'll initialize that to 0. We say as long as our subindex, probably need to make this capitalized, good practice, camel case. So as long as subindex is less than, is it our array length? No, it'd be array I. So whatever index we're currently at, we're going to look at the length of that one. So then keep incrementing through the array inside the array. So this second for loop, the first one is in charge of going through the whole list of 4, the 4 lists that we have. The second for loop is in charge of going through each of the individual lists. So this one will go through 4, 5, 1, and 3, and then the second time in the loop it'll go through 13, 27, 18, 26. Third time through the loop it'll go through here, and then the fourth time it'll go through here. So when it's going through there, we want it to do, what do we want it to do? We want it to check. So that's an if statement. And here we would say if we want to check if the array whichever one we're at. So we want to check if the array we're at, which would be targeted through index, and then the sub-index as well. So I would say sub-index here. So if this, so the first time through the loop, 0, 0 would be in here, which would target 4. So if the number we're currently looking at is greater than our biggest number, which is 0, then do this. And here's where we would update biggest number, and we'll pass it in whatever that bigger number is. Putting SB, it should be SI. Thinking sub. Okay, so this is now updating every time it's going through the list. First it checks the number 4. Is 4 greater than 0? Because initially it's 0. Then if it is, then it's going to replace 0 with that number, which was 4. It goes a second time through the loop, so then this becomes the number 1, which is now checking the number 5. If 5 is greater than 4, then save 5 as biggest number now, and it goes through the list. The third time it checks if 1 is, it does not run this part of our code since 1 is not greater than 5, and it doesn't run 3 either because the same concept. So once it's out of this, then we want to update our answer, and we want it to contain whatever number was the biggest number. So this is where it's kind of tricky, is where do I want to put it here? That one connects there. This one connects here. So once it's outside of the loop, then I want it to check. So it's actually under here. And this is where answer I, wherever we're at in our original loop, we want that to contain biggest number. So then whatever ends up being the biggest number the first time around gets saved into answer index 0. Since this is an empty array, after it gets here, that empty array is actually going to contain an index 0. It's going to contain whatever our biggest number was, which was the 5. So then at the end we want to return answer, which will be the completed. Let me go through the logic, make sure that this makes sense to me. We pass in this argument that has a list of 4 different lists that each have 4 numbers inside of them. It starts off as an empty list. Then we have our for loop. We say if as long as I, which is 0, is less than the length, keep going through the list. So this will go all the way through until it gets to the number 3, because 4 is not less than 4. So this will go through the list of our array. Then we have biggest number initialized to 0. Then we check the subarray, or the subindex, which are here. We initialize to 0. And as long as SI is less than the length of that subarray, keep going through the loop. Then if it makes it that far, the if statement checks whatever number we're currently at, and it compares it to biggest number, which initially is 0, and it changes every time there's a bigger number it will update it, and then it updates it to answer, which is our empty array the second time around. Index 0 will have the 5, then index 1 will have the 27, and it does this, and we should be good. Actually, it makes sense. Kool-Aid Man says, oh yeah. This challenge was pretty cool. The hardest part probably with these problems is where to put this right here. Very easily, could mistake it and put it here, and that will, give us a totally different answer. But yeah.